The president also says the U.S. is increasing efforts to remove the mines that are already there.
6 submarines, 2 destroyers, 1 choke point, no room to disappear forever. It begins in the Strait of Hormuz before sunrise, where the sea looks flat until it starts hiding things, where merchant traffic distorts judgment, where tanker noise pollutes every layer, where shallow water, thermal variation, steel hulls, and compressed geography can turn a quiet contact into the most dangerous object in the region. 2 U.S. destroyers move through the darkness with the kind of cold precision that looks uneventful from a distance. No drama on deck, no alarms yet, no visible urgency from the outside. But these are not ships built to look impressive first. They are built to detect first, sort first, react first, kill first if they have to. That matters in Hormuz, because nothing there is ever truly routine. Not in narrow water, not in weak light, not with that much steel moving through that much tension. The 2 destroyers cut through the transit lane in disciplined geometry. One slightly forward, one offset behind. Shared picture, shared risk, shared response. Then the undersea picture changes. At first it looks like the kind of anomaly sonar teams are trained not to overreact to. A faint submerged contact, slow, distant, buried inside the acoustic ugliness of the strait. Merchant shafts, hull slap, thermal bending, civilian wash, false lines. Hormuz lies through sound, but false patterns do not usually behave with discipline. Inside the Combat Information Center of the lead destroyer, a sonar operator narrows his eyes and leans into the headset. He adjusts the filter, reruns the band, and listens again. Controlled shaft rhythm, low self-noise, no civilian randomness. He speaks without emotion. Possible submerged contact. Bearing 084, classification uncertain. Nobody panics. The room changes anyway. Heads turn, chairs tighten, displays matter more. The tactical action officer steps behind the operator and watches the green lines crawl. Then a second contact appears, then a third, then a fourth. New submerged contact, bearing 107, weak submerged line northeast, moving. Possible 4th track south of lane. The tactical board expands. The destroyers hold course. No one wants to move too soon. No one wants to tell the ocean below that it has already changed the shape of the transit. Then the 5th contact comes in, then the 6th. For 1 second, nobody says anything. 6 submerged contacts near 2 U.S. destroyers into Strait of Hormuz is not noise. It is pressure, it is testing, it is doctrine. And if those contacts are what they might be, then the problem is no longer tactical curiosity. It is geometry, because 1 submarine can watch, 2 can stalk, a few can pressure. 6, spaced with intent, is something else entirely. 6 means the water itself may already be trying to close. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people. The captain of the lead destroyer enters CIC and doesn't ask for the long version. He reads the room first, then the board. Passive only, sir. 6 possible submerged contacts. No active emissions, no confirmed weapon indications. Relative spacing appears deliberate. That last word lands hard, deliberate. The 2nd destroyer is informed immediately. So is the air detachment. So is every watch station that needs to understand one thing fast. This is no longer a routine transit. But the ships do not turn. That matters more than most people think. Turning would announce reaction. Turning would tell whoever is below that they have already bent the surface picture. Turning would give away information before the Americans have taken enough of it first, so the destroyers keep moving through the strait as if nothing has changed. Below them, everything has. The anti-submarine warfare teams start building the picture from fragments, hull sonar, towed array, bearing drift, remote input, helicopter prep, electronic discipline. No one guesses. That is the first rule in undersea tension. Do not let imagination outrun data. Do not let fear write the classification before the ocean does. Still, the pattern is getting uglier. 2 contacts wide south, 1 drifting under merchant interference, 2 deeper and farther back, holding spacing too clean to feel accidental, and 1 nearer contact angled across the destroyer's future line. The tactical action officer says it quietly. They're shaping a screen. The captain answers at once. Wake the Seahawk. Passive posture only. No active sonar yet. Orders move through steel. On the flight deck, sailors run under red lighting toward the MH-60R Seahawk. Rotor locks come off. Panels are checked. Sensors come alive. In a matter of minutes, the helicopter will become the destroyer's ear above the water and their hand beneath it. Inside CIC, the 6 contacts are tagged: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot. Alpha is closest. Alpha is also the one moving like it has something to prove. The Strait of Hormuz is a cruel place for undersea warfare, too shallow in some places, too noisy in others, too crowded to trust, too politically dangerous for mistakes. That is exactly why a submarine force would want to operate there. A destroyer in open water has room to shape. A destroyer in Hormuz has to solve problems compressed by geography, politics, and sound. That compression is the gamble, and whoever sent these 6 contacts into this strait understands that. The first Seahawk rises into the morning darkness and immediately changes the problem. From above, the sea stops looking random. Sonobuoys begin dropping into black water, one line, then another. A listening fence takes shape not where the contacts are, but where they want to go. That is the difference between tracking and hunting. The helicopter crew ties directly into the destroyer's combat system. 6 contacts, 6 uncertain ranges, 6 possible Russian submarine profiles, Alpha closest, Bravo and Delta wider south, Charlie massed in merchant clutter, Echo and Foxtrot deeper, slower, farther back. That is not chaos, that is behavior, and behavior is what turns uncertainty into threat. The destroyers do not rush to active pinging. They do not light up the sea just because the situation feels ugly. Active sonar sharpens the picture. It also reveals where you are listening from. In cramped water, that can help the target almost as much as the hunter. So the Americans wait a little longer, and the waiting pays. One sonobuoy picks up a return, then another. Buoy 3 live. Buoy 5 receiving low-frequency mechanical pattern, possible alpha. The signal gets frozen and compared. Slow shaft rate, controlled machinery, low self-noise. Not merchant traffic, not random clutter. At that moment, the first aircraft outside the immediate destroyer's screens checks in from altitude. A maritime patrol asset, listening from farther out, folds fresh bearing logic into the picture. The first classification comes back careful. Profile consistent with Russian attack submarine. Confidence medium. Medium is enough to change everything. Not publicly, not dramatically, but inside the destroyer's posture shifts. One ship reduces speed slightly to clean up self-noise. The other widens passive angle. Weapons teams quietly move deeper into readiness. Bridge options are refined. Aviation support holds. Still, neither destroyer breaks formation. That discipline matters. If Russian crews are observing through mass systems or watching the surface picture indirectly, what they see is not panic. They see control. Then Alpha makes the first mistake. It accelerates, not much. But underwater, a small increase in speed can be louder than a shouted confession. The sonar operator catches it immediately. Alpha increasing turns, bearing rate changing. Contact, the captain stays calm. Seahawk to dipping position, safe offset. No weapons posture. The helicopter banks and descends. Dipping sonar lowers into the dark sea on a cable that disappears below the surface. For a few seconds, there is only hiss. Then the water answers. Hard return, mechanical, moving. Alpha reacts instantly. Depth change, controlled, fast enough to matter. That matters too, because ghosts do not react to search patterns. Submarines do. Inside sea is sea, no one celebrates. This is not that kind of work. The tactical officer says it flat. Alpha maneuvering in response to dipping sonar. The captain nods once. Confirmed submarine. More buoys go into the water. The picture sharpens to degrees, not miles. That is how undersea confrontations work. Not through one dramatic reveal. Through slow certainty tightening like wire. Then the next update arrives. Alpha high confidence Russian submarine. Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot possible associated contacts. Coordinated spacing likely. That line changes the emotional temperature. Because this is no longer one quiet boat shadowing a transit. This is 6 submarine profiles challenging 2 destroyers inside one of the most politically explosive waterways on Earth. That is not casual observation. That is pressure. That is signaling. That is an attempt to bend the geometry of the transit without firing a shot. Comment shadow if you think this was the moment the destroyers knew it was never just surveillance. The destroyers keep moving. That is the part people underestimate. The easiest thing emotionally would be to maneuver big. Turn hard, reposition obviously. Show the problem is serious. The Americans do not do that. Instead, they adjust by degrees. One destroyer edges forward just enough to improve acoustic angle. The other preserves overlap. Their formation does not separate, it tightens. Below the surface, Alpha pushes farther inward. Bravo and Delta hold wider south. Charlie stays masked in tanker noise. Echo and Foxtrot remain deeper and farther back, positioned less like attackers and more like problem makers waiting to exploit confusion. To an amateur, it would look scattered. To professionals, it looks coordinated. The tactical officer studies the board. They're testing every seam. The captain answers without looking away. Let them. That line says everything. The destroyers are no longer trying to guess the plan. They are trying to force the submarines to reveal it. Then the range gets uncomfortable. Alpha inside projected weapons envelope. Nobody moves. That phrase does not mean a torpedo is in the water. It does not mean war has started. It means the geometry has become real enough that if this were open conflict, Alpha could matter in a way nobody aboard can ignore. The captain's voice stays level. Confirm no launch transient, no launch transient, no confirmed tube flood. He waits 1 beat. Prepare controlled active burst. That is not panic. It is a message written in sound. One sharp pulse. Not a reckless sweep, not emotional noise, just one precise statement from the destroyer to the water below. We know where you are. The sonar team lines it up. Bearing, depth estimate, timing. Then the pulse goes out. It cuts through thermal distortion and merchant clutter like a blade. The return comes back hard. There, Alpha. Closer than comfortable. Deeper than expected. Angled across the destroyer's projected path. The operator marks it instantly. Active return. Alpha confirmed. Bearing 090. Maneuvering. The Russian submarine reacts at once. It drops deeper and cuts off the strongest part of the beam. Not sloppy, not random. Professional. But that reaction reveals its own truth. This is not a ghost. This is a real boat with a trained crew trying to avoid being fixed. The Seahawk descends again. Dipping sonar goes back into the water from offset position. Now Alpha has problems above and behind. A destroyer on the line. A helicopter over the likely exit route. Passive tracking from another American hull waiting for the movement. The destroyers are no longer merely reacting. They are shaping the water. Then comes the sound nobody likes. A brief metallic transient from Alpha's forward section. Sharp. Mechanical. Real enough to matter. The operator raises A's one hand. Transient from Alpha. Uncertain classification. The captain turns his head. Could be what? Trim adjustment. Valve sequence. Outer door movement. Not enough to confirm. That is the nightmare of undersea standoffs. A tiny sound can mean nothing. Or it can mean everything. The tactical action officer speaks carefully. Recommend condition 2 ASW. Weapons tight. The captain nods. Set it. Across the two destroyers, posture changes without noise. Weapons crews tighten readiness. Engagement logic updates. Bridge teams clean maneuver options. The surface picture stays calm for anyone not inside the circuit. That restraint matters. This is where amateurs create escalation. Professionals create control. Bravo begins moving faster south. Delta mirrors it. Charlie sinks deeper into merchant clutter. Echo and Foxtrot hold back quiet and patient. It is an old stretch the hunters. Make them divide. Force them to choose between the nearest threat and the wider geometry. But the destroyers refuse the bait. 10 primary on Alpha. Secondary passive on Bravo and Delta. Do not break the box. That is the right answer. One ship holds Alpha, the other absorbs wider sectors. The helicopter seeds the likely exit line with more buoys. The overhead asset broadens the picture. The Russians are trying to stretch the American screen. The screen does not stretch. It absorbs. That is what destroys a lot of ambitious attack plans before the first shot is ever fired. The target refuses to become separate problems. Type yes if you want to see how close Alpha came before the whole Russian screen started breaking. Hormuz is still dark, but below the surface, Alpha is now inside a trap it cannot see in full. Sonobuoys ahead, destroyer sonar behind, a helicopter above, passive bearings closing from the flank. No weapon has been released, no explosion has happened, and yet the pressure is already enormous, because submariners know when the water is starting to narrow around them. Alpha turns south, trying to use tanker noise as acoustic terrain. Smart move. Merchant traffic in Hormuz creates ugly, dirty layers of sound that can hide a submarine for just long enough to matter. But the sonobuoy field is already waiting. Buoy 7 has Alpha. Buoy 9 confirms. Bearing drift matches. Its cleanest exit lane is gone. Then a Bravo increases turns south. Delta does the same. Foxtrot begins creeping inward from deeper water. This is the dangerous part. Not because the Russians are attacking openly, because they are still trying to preserve options. One press it. Two stretch. Others lurk. If the Americans chase too hard in one direction, the rest gain room. If they split too much, everybody breathes. The destroyers do neither. Another escort quality maneuver would have been to overcommit. They don't. They keep the carrier killer logic where it belongs, on control, not aggression. Charlie nearly disappears under the acoustic wake of tankers. The operator strips away louder bands and finds it again. Weak, masked, still there. Charlie held. Possible masking attempt. Mark it. Don't chase. Exactly right. The objective is not to prove every contact beyond all doubt in real time. The objective is to deny 6 submarines freedom of action near 2 U.S. destroyers in close water. Then Alpha turns harder, sharper than before, deeper too. It is trying to cut across the edge of the buoy wall and ride the commercial noise lane out of the destroyer's best geometry. The captain gives the order. Seed the exit lane. More buoys drop. Not where Alpha is, where Alpha wants to be. That is what separates good ASW crews from average ones. They do not chase the contact. They close the future around it. For a few seconds, nothing new appears. Then it does. Alpha on buoy 11. Strong return. Buoy 12 confirms. Alpha turning again. The submarine has found the wall. It knows now that the lane ahead is no longer clean. Whether through instinct, sound, or pure professional suspicion, its crew realizes the Americans have solved enough of the picture to make continued pressure dangerous. Every turn it makes now teaches the destroyers something. Preferred evasion angle, reaction speed after active sonar, comfort level near merchant noise, depth behavior under helicopter pressure. This is no longer only survival. It is intelligence collection. Russia came to measure 2 U.S. destroyers in Hormuz. The destroyers are measuring Russian submarine behavior right back. Then something changes that never appears on the open tactical display. A fresh passive bearing from somewhere deeper, somewhere quieter, somewhere not announced. The watch team sees it. The captain sees it. No one says the platform name aloud. But now the box feels complete. Destroyers behind, helicopter above, buoys ahead. And somewhere out there, an American undersea asset holding the kind of angle that makes every professional submariner suddenly re-evaluate the entire mission. That silent development changes everything without changing anything on the surface. The captain's next order is almost soft. Maintain shadow. No more active unless required. That is how you keep an advantage. You do not reveal all of it. At first, Alpha slows. Delta widens out. Foxtrot stops pressing inward. Charlie drifts away from the approach axis. Echo remains deep but no longer angles toward the destroyer's line. The Russian screen is loosening. That is the moment the Americans know the confrontation is turning. Not because someone surrendered. Not because the threat vanished. Because the six-boat geometry that entered the strait trying to pressure two destroyers is now being forced into exit management. And exit management is not victory. It is controlled retreat from a problem you failed to bend. Share this video so people understand what really happens when undersea pressure meets layered naval defense. Alpha nearly stops. Not dead in the water, not harmless, just quiet enough to pretend it is no longer part of the problem. Inside the destroyers, nobody buys that for a second. The track stays alive, passive only. No unnecessary pulse, no extra pressure. 30 minutes earlier, Alpha had been the point of the Russian challenge. Now it is searching for a way out that does not expose even more of its behavior than it already has. Status on Bravo. Opening slightly south. Delta, no longer closing. Charlie, weak. Drifting away. Echo and Foxtrot, still deep, both opening gradually. The captain nods once. Hold course. That one phrase becomes the entire verdict. The destroyers do not need to fire to win this encounter. They do not need a burning submarine to prove anything. They only need to deny access, deny confidence, and collect everything the Russians reveal while trying not to look beaten. And that is exactly what happens. The Seahawk climbs slightly after nearly an hour of low work over black water. Not too far, not enough to let Alpha disappear. Just enough to signal that the Americans know they have control and do not need theatrics. The balance is deliberate. Pressure too hard and you create grievance. Back off too early and the contact exits clean. So they hold the exact distance that denies both. Fresh track packages move through the system. Every turn, every depth correction, every pause after active sonar, every attempt to hide under tanker noise. This is the part headlines never show. The victory is not just that the destroyers stayed safe. The victory is that 6 Russian submarine profiles have now shown how they behave when their undersea pressure plan runs into layered American discipline. Then Alpha turns cleanly away. Not a feint, not a setup. Outbound. Bravo opens wider south. Delta follows. Charlie is already leaving the axis. Echo drifts deeper and farther away. Foxtrot breaks its slow inward line. For the first time since the first contact appeared, all 6 Russian submarines are pointed away from the 2 destroyers. The operator marks it. Alpha opening range. Then another voice. Bravo opening. Delta opening. Foxtrot opening. Charlie continuing outbound. The captain exhales once. Not relief. Confirmation. Keep them held until beyond the screen. The destroyers stay on course. The helicopter keeps watching. The silent undersea American presence remains exactly what it should be, unadvertised. That may be the worst part for the Russians. They know they were found. They know they were shaped. They know they were denied. What they may not know is exactly how many American layers had them, or from where. That uncertainty goes home with them, and uncertainty is expensive in undersea warfare. By the time dawn starts touching the eastern horizon, the black surface of Hormuz has turned steel gray. Antennas keep sweeping, bridge teams keep driving, weapons teams stay sharp. The crisis edge has passed, but the lesson is now permanent. 6 Russian submarines entered Hormuz to pressure 2 U.S. destroyers. They did not stop the transit. They did not fracture the screen. They did not create the kind of close-range chaos they came to impose. They left tracked, logged, map understood. If this shocked you, comment Hormuz below. Because this is what most people miss about modern naval confrontation. Victory does not always come with missiles. Sometimes it comes when the other side cannot hold the approach. Sometimes it comes when 2 destroyers refuse to separate into isolated targets. Sometimes it comes when the sea goes quiet, because the enemy has realized the water no longer belongs to uncertainty. So now here is the real question. If you were commanding those 2 U.S. destroyers, would you have forced the confrontation earlier, with stronger active measures? Or would you do exactly what they did here and hold course until the submarines expose themselves one by one? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit like. Tell me which naval standoff should I cover next, and subscribe because the next battle in Hormuz may not begin with an explosion. it may begin with a sound. This scenario is a fictional simulation created for educational purposes, built around publicly discussed anti-submarine doctrine, regional geography, and naval operational concepts. The sea looks empty until it isn't, the screens stay lit, and the water remembers every mistake. Stay sharp. Keep your eyes on Hormuz.